behind the scenes, it was a small group of people that were doing everything.
Welcome back to the GTM podcast. It's your host, Scott Barker.
I want to know how this insane growth actually happened.
We are back in action. Welcome to the GTM podcast. As always, thank you for hanging out with us. I know there's a million and one different ways you could be spending your time, and we're happy you're using it to uplevel your go-to-market expertise. Today, it feels like we're bringing the old band back together again. I've sort of been giddy all morning about this conversation. I was incredibly fortunate to learn from and work for this next founder for 4 incredibly formative years of my career, and I wouldn't trade them for anything. I am joined by truly one of the best founders to ever do it. I'm joined by Manny Medina, CEO and founder of Outreach. Manny, great to see you, my man. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great, Scott. I'm excited to be here, and I'm ready to be the highest rated listener in your show. So
I have no
I need
doubt.
to I need to
I
find
have
out what
no
my
doubt.
baseline is, because I'm gonna crush that right now.
Do you know who it is? It's actually a good friend of yours, Mr. Lars Nielsen. He holds the belt right now for the number
All
one
right,
episode so
I need to
far.
bring it to Lars. I'm gonna bring it to Lars today. What happened?
Let's do it. Let's do it. All right. So I just want to set the stage. We won't go too much on your background because, just Google the name Manny Medina, very infamous in SaaS circles. One thing I will share that I think is a good insight into the type of leader you are. I still remember one of the first times meeting you in person. And one of the first questions to me, I think it was like the question number 1 after, maybe it was 2, maybe how you doing? And then number 2 was, how are we going to get you and Sales Hacker to immediately move the needle for us at Outreach? And that question sort of, to me, perfectly encapsulates the type of leader you are. It's one, we're here to do great work, but we're all here to support you in doing that. It wasn't how are you going to immediately come in? It was how are we going to get you and Sales Hacker to come in and immediately move the needle, which I thought was pretty cool. Where does your sustained drive come from? I feel like it's easy to be motivated for a short period of time, maybe even for a few years, but this has been decades now, and that's a whole other beast. Where does that come from?
I think is that as a new CEO, you have to reframe your problem, and you have to reframe what are you about to do for the next year or 2 years forward, not backward. So, whatever you did in the past that got you here, it's all, things that were invested already that you can't count on to bring you forward. You have to only look forward, because that's what you have ahead for you. So you have to get excited about what's forward. And once you get excited about what's forward, and this is the answer to your question, the sustaining factor is how many other people you infect with that happiness, with that excitement, with that motivation, with that goal, with that zeal. Matter of fact, it's so stark for me that whoever I cannot infect with that amount of energy, I need to part ways, because the organization cannot drag somebody along. You have to be able to, you all need energy sources, and the energy sources are all around us. So even when we started Outreach, there's 4 of us, and the 4 of us had all a role, like not only a functional role of like front end, back end, product design and sales, but it had the energy balance of like whenever Wes went down, then I was up. If Gordon went down, the Kinzer was up. If Kinzer was down, then Wes and Gordon were up. And I was like, there was always somebody who had to balance the energy and the drive and the vision and the belief, because you're fundamentally changing the world before it has been changed. All of us went to the future, so the future came back and tried to implement it. And you have to build a team that does that. Otherwise, you fail, because you run out of steam. You get bored. You run out of energy. The thing is like hard. Like right now, everything is hard. So if things is hard, people tend to give up, because like, you could be hanging out on the beach. But now, like, you have to maintain that zeal, and you only can do it if everybody else around you is doing it too.
I love that idea of, as a founder, you fly to the future and then you have to come back and try and implement it and infect others to see that future. I think it's a fantastic way of looking at it. All right. Well, I like to kick these off with something a little bit topical, and folks may roll their eyes. They might be tired of hearing it, but when I'm talking to CROs, CMOs, all day long, all they want to talk about is AI and the impact that's going to have on the future of go to market. And I think I'd be remiss if we didn't at least try and juggle with that for a little bit. I'm about to fly down to SF, lead a panel on the topic, but I know Outreach started investing in AI many, many years ago. I'm not sure 5, 6 years ago. So certainly well ahead of the curve. What's your take on all this recent innovation and the impact it's going to have on rev tech landscape as a whole? Is it overblown? Is it, not getting the attention it deserves? Would love your take.
So we started investing in AI, over 7 years ago at this point, and we built our own AI team. And what that means is that we have to build the data pipelines that feed information from the transactions that we're running into our AI engine, so that we can do, forecasts, so we can do, better NLP, so we can do, better estimates or things that are, how things are going to work on that. And when we build Kaya, it's the same thing. Like, how do we take the spoken word, real time transcribe it, and then real time understand what you're saying, so that we can give you, cards that help you answer the question for the rep. And a lot of those things are leaps of faith. So I always, one of the things I learned at Amazon is that your only sustainable advantage is the one that you develop where you build something that nobody else believes is going to work, and then you make it work, and everybody else is behind. Like, if you look at Amazon Web Services, it's exactly that. They were, in the doghouse for about 13 years before boom, take off. And then all of a sudden cloud is a thing and everybody's behind, and they're like, larger than all the competitors combined. So it's the same thing for us. We fundamentally believe that AI was going to change the way we sell. We fundamentally believe that our goal was true and pure. Our goal is to make every single one of the 30 million B2B reps out there incredibly successful. Because if we know that if they achieve success, that if they accomplish if they're able to attain their fullest of their potential, they benefit themselves, and the organizations benefit themselves too. So the managers benefit because the rep perform, and then the whole org benefits because they perform, and then they go home earlier, they have more money, they contribute back to their families and their societies, and all that is a pure form of purpose for us. So we built AI to make sure that the rep is always equipped with the latest technology. And when you do that, you always look for what is out there. You have this feedback loop of like, we're building with testing, we're building with testing, we're building with testing, and to see what works. So, we built, sentiment recognition on email, I don't know, like 4 years ago. And the reason we did it is because we wanted the ability for everybody else to look at what's working, what's not, real time. Like, you don't want to miss the quarter to then go in and diagnose to figure out that your value proposition wasn't working. You want to know real time that you're getting objections around this area, so that you can correct it real time. You see what I mean? Like, you want to know real time that you're targeting the wrong persona, so you can you can revector the rep to the right direction. So to answer the question of, what does AI? I think generative is going to play a huge role in sales. And what I'm excited about is that how much is it going to elevate the sales profession? You see what I mean? Like, reps are now going to have way more time to really diagnose the problem for a customer, to really empathize, with a buying committee, to really be able to lead, a group of people into what they're trying to sell, because that is success that they sell, right? When we invented mutual action plans, we interview, dozens of reps over 2 years. Kinzer drove people crazy with his interviews. And what he found out was that the best performing reps sold a vision of success in the future. And they brought it back to today in the form of a plan, and they enrolled everybody in that vision, right? So he created this dynamic of like, people really bought into what they were trying to do. And that is what really completed the sales cycle. So when that happens, it's magic, right? It's like human magic that you're able to accomplish. And if you're able to remove all the crud, right, the note taking and the coming up with decks and the ability to transcribe stuff and like pass messages back and forth, and let a robot do that, then it's incredible, right? Because like, your ability to do that more often just goes up significantly. So that's what we're excited about. What we're not excited about is about the noise that you're mentioning.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of read my mind there. Is from my point of view, which is a limited one, talking to like a lot of startups every day, is there is a ton of new entrants coming into the market, all claiming we're AI native, and that's our moat, is that we're AI native, and we were we were built during this like great revolution of generative AI. Are you finding those new entrants confusing the market? Do you take more of you know, welcome to the arena. Let's see what you got. You'll help us fuel faster innovation. Um, what is your take on kind of the competitive landscape right now?
Yeah, what we're seeing, we just closed our largest deal in history this last quarter, and thank you. And AI was a topic in terms of like, can you future proof our go to market team by ensuring that AI is built into the parts of your workflow. So AI is coming up as a thing that people want to understand your approach to. So for us, AI needs to work real time, right? If the sales doesn't if the direction of an outcome doesn't get changed, it doesn't matter. So this is why we don't fundamentally believe in just forecasting. It needs to be forecasting with an action, right? So the ability for AI to do two things. One is to look at this morass of data and come up with insights, and then take those insights and communicate it to either a rep to improve performance or to a buyer to change the direction is super important, but only works if it's real time. Monday morning quarterbacking, there is just way too many of those happening out there right now. And that's really unhelpful. So when you wrap the definition of what is helpful AI around what is the goal that you're trying to accomplish, right? You're trying to make the rep better, you're trying to improve conversion, you're trying to improve participation, or you're trying to improve a customer understanding of what you do, then it becomes super useful. The interesting part for us is that large organizations. So like everybody gets to sell to other startups, and that's how we all start, right? Like we walk down the financial district, we walk down market, and we sell to each other, right? But at some point you have to go and sell to large companies. Those large companies can only take innovation at a rated measure. Like they can't just take a bunch of innovation and implement, because they have way too many people doing way too many things for them to change their habits. And that's what's really going to be the acid test for AI. The moment it gets infiltrated into how large organizations do their work, then you can call that a success. Right now, we're selling it to each other and claiming that we have our stick is bigger than the other one and that we are more AI than the next one. That's relatively unhelpful. It's part of the dynamics, right? Like you saw that, like we're just talking about this. You saw that in Clubhouse, right? Like, oh my God, real time podcasting is the new thing, and then it just went away. So until we don't find like that true crossing the chasm into large customer applications, into true use cases, this thing is going to be a flash in the pan, and it's going to be just absorbed by the large players that are already established, and they know what to do with it.
And a funny aside there, we were talking about the parallels between Clubhouse and some of the generative AI hype, and we couldn't, for the life of us, remember the name Clubhouse, which
That's
will
right.
tell you
Right. This
how
whole
quickly
podcast
some of these
started 5
things.
minutes later because we couldn't remember the name Clubhouse, and it's just the hottest thing for the longest time.
It really was. It really was. I have a potential theory that I'm thinking we might see come to pass, and I would love your take on it. Is some of these larger industries that you're talking about who were slower to adopt SaaS, but they're coming around to it. Call it finance, call it insurance, call it manufacturing. These just behemoths that tech hasn't done a great job breaking into. It feels like with low code, no code, generative AI now, things getting easier and easier to interact with and sometimes sit in the background more. It feels like it might be a situation similar to, India, where they skipped putting up uh, telephone poles and went straight to cell towers, right? And they kind of just did this leapfrog. And it feels like through some of these new advancements, that's what's going to happen into some of these bigger industries, but they're going to be looking for entire platforms so they don't have to go and get all these point solutions and train their whole 30,000 person organization on them. Does that feel like something you're seeing?
We're definitely seeing that, in that people don't want to buy 5 things for 2 jobs, and as long as platforms delivers on the vision of what they're going to do, they're going to be okay. The problem is that we always this is the beauty of innovation and capitalism, that works until it doesn't. That works until you have such a compelling point solution that it does this one job so well that is so meaningfully expensive or critical to the organization that you buy it because it can do so. If you look at, the Snowflakes of the world, or the Databricks of the world, or the, Datadogs of the world, like they were all like a point solution of some sort, and that did the one job incredibly well, and then they expanded to the adjacent point solutions, and they did all that well. The same thing even for us, right? Like, we began as an engagement platform, and then as our customers pull us across the execution boundaries, and they said, Manny, if you're delivering, pipeline generation, can you help us qualify that pipeline better? If you're qualifying that pipeline better, can you deliver better deal management? If you can deliver better deal management, can you help a rep close more and more often? And then when you do all that, then you start creating, then you have the secondary effects of creating observability into what's going on. And then you have the ability to lay AI on what's going on. So you have to earn your right to deliver AI to a customer by solving problems. And if you haven't earned that right, the customer is not going to trust you. So this is the problem with the AI pitch, is that AI in itself doesn't solve a problem. It's the application of AI to problem X that's going to solve a problem. So the big bet for anyone, especially that you're betting on with your dollars, is to say, do you solve a problem that is meaningful enough right now? Because that means that you will live out of the situation that is right now. Right now it's sort of like the embryonic state of, like, we have this soup of like different people and different companies, and all trying to do something. But the one that is going to jump out of the soup into the land and become a real mammal is one that solves a problem that is meaningful and can expand, because they have a chance to play platform. Everybody else don't. And that's where we are right now.
Agreed. I feel like that happens in every sort of hype cycle, whether it was, the Clubhouse example, or blockchain, or generative AI. People fall in love with the technology instead of the problem, and then they try and reverse engineer it. And it's just fundamentally not the way to build a business. You start with the problem, and then you find the technology, whether it's AI or whatever it is, that's going to solve that problem.
We used to get questions around, there's a lot of companies that are generating emails. Like, that was 2 years ago. And they were generating better emails and better was, and auto creating and taking information and creating that. Fast forward to today, you don't need any of that, because ChatGPT does it on a small prompt, right? So there's going to be definitely displacements, right? Like, getting checked is now a word in tech that was born about a week ago. So there is companies that are going to get checked, that all of a sudden they go from, like, their core value proposition is disrupted by this thing that could be done automatically. But then all it does is it makes the problem uninteresting, meaning that problem is for the most part solved. Tweaking it to improve it 5 to 10% is kind of not that helpful. But now the problem is that the amount of noise that you get at the beginning of the front end of the pipeline is going to be massive, right? So now you need other ways for you to sort of find your ways through the noise to solve the problem, signals that allows you to really target the accounts that you're going to move, and then sort of like use your own humanity to move deals forward. You see what I mean? So what it does is, like, AI, sort of like subsumes areas of work that now can be completely handled by bots, and then become uninteresting, and you sort of like focus on something else.
It feels like every big advancement, it automates more and more and allows the human to shine more. It's actually what it does. Like, your creativity and your understanding of human connection and who you should map out, like, you can focus on that versus the mundane, things that should be there.
And if you think about how, GPT came to pass, right? GPT took the internet as of 2020 and sort of created this massive model that is based on that corpus of work, right? So it was trained like this, right? Imagine you have this page of text, you cover this page of text at the bottom part, and then you have it read this, and then have it guess the second part, and then whether it's right or wrong. That's your training model, right? That happened across the web, and that is GPT right now. Doing that for human interactions is impossible, because it's not out there. You see what I mean? Like, our conversations that happen after we hang up here, they're going out to have a drink, they're going out to dinner, all this morass of things that are happening around sales that are inside of the firewalls of companies is not available. You see what I mean? And because it's not available, it's not trainable. So the ability for you to navigate a customer conversation remains a human power that we now can elevate, because all the crud gets done by the bot. That's what's so interesting, the moment that we're living right now.
That is Interesting, and a great way to explain kind of how those models are trained. Okay, I'm going to purposely switch gears because given the opportunity, I would riff on this for far too long with you. But this is a story based podcast. You have a multitude of incredible stories that you can pull from building outreach, and I'm going to let you take this wherever you want to go. But I would love it if you could break down one of the most impactful stories of your time building outreach. That could be this big deal that you just closed. That could be navigating this down market. It could be the inception of outreach. Wherever you want to take it, I'm here for it, and we'll wrestle with kind of what you did right, what would you do wrong, and what would you do differently.
I'll tell you a story that happened to me very recently. So, another founder CEO of a company in our space ish, much larger public, um, asked me to go have breakfast on Sunday, and I was riffing with him, like, comparing stories is the way we are right now. And I was telling him that one of the things that I miss the most is that when we were small, cash strapped, nobodies, to go from that to putting a product out in the market, we took customer validation framework, like, whether you take it from Stephen Blank or anybody else, in which you really obsess around landing not only the product market fit but the product sales fit, is a matter of do or die. There's no try, to quote Yoda here. You either do or you're done. So, we took the ability to land something with a customer so incredibly seriously that to us was, paramount to religion. Like, we will never dare to write a line of code without knowing that a customer was not only willing to use it, but use it regularly and pay for it. So, like, we set up this triple stair step for us to really make sure that we nail the technology. So when we created workflows, we interviewed the shit out of everybody before we coded it. And then we gave it to, then we deployed it. And then we would take it away. We would like shut it down and see what happens, right? And see how many phone calls we would get. Just to make triple sure that we were actually heading in the right direction. And then we would wake up and like, we would panic and be like, what if they're lying to us? So we would call everybody again and be like, are you really using it? I see that you're using it, but are you really using it? Are you really getting value from it? Why are you getting value from it? Why are you telling your friends? Like, what kind of value are you getting from it? Like, not only the clear value, which of core outreach was delivering meetings, but like, how many meetings would you deliver if you didn't have outreach? Like, what was your workflow before and why is it now? Like, how much am I changing your actual life? You see what I mean? Like, so, and as you grow, you sort of start losing that because you start winning more. You start getting used to winning, and that paranoia that somebody's not gonna love something you did, or like do or die by what you did, or use it as much as your toothbrush. Right? There's a toothbrush test. It's not quite there yet, and we all lose it to some degree as we grow. Like, this is not like a loss of focus or a loss um, of uh, of will. It's just that it gets harder as you get bigger, right? You can't just pick up and call a customer because there is a whole team that is managing that customer and the relationship, etc. So it could be disruptive sometimes. Shutting something down has real implications. I mean, we knew that that we had a market fitting product was actually when the product went down, because we got a call from a VP of sales that said, I just sent my team to lunch. It's 11 a.m. here in New York. You have an hour to fix this problem. Go. And we're like, step one, panic. Step two, fix the problem. Step three, take a step back and just see what happened, right? What happened was that we are mission critical. Like, if we are down, somebody doesn't sell. And that is such a refresh. Like, that was like a milestone for us. That's when we really acknowledged that we are there. Paying customer, thing went down, call us pissed. Now we know we're here. So you take that and you build from that. And that I wish for every startup out there is that they have the same sort of like panic. Like, it's not obsession. It's like, it's one step past obsession. It's like, this is what you think about. This is how you play. This is what you obsess about. This is what you talk on weekends. It's like, am I driving real value, and why and to whom, and how can I make it better? How can I drive this a little bit forward, 1 inch at a time, and never lose that? Like, that is my paranoia right now. Is as we grow, is that we may lose it. I never want to lose that. I always, every time I talk to any product manager or anyone in engineering, it's like, how do we not lose that? This is why I spend time in support, because in support is the acid test. When a support ticket comes in, then you really get the feeling how is somebody using it? Is it mission critical to somebody?
It's fantastic advice. And I've got a few follow-up questions there, but I want to make sure you had this. You mentioned these like triple stairs sort of framework in the early days. And that was, if I got it correctly, so you do a ridiculous amount of interviews. You find out what they want, what's working for them, what's not working for them. You would then take a subsection of your customers. You would deploy whatever they asked you for, let them interact with it, for a couple weeks, months, whatever, and then you're actually going to take that feature away and see what the response is. Was that sort of the three
So the
steps?
last one is a little extreme, right? You can only do that if you're very small and you're really sure what you're doing. You can also ask the question, if I were to take this away, what would you do? And sometimes asking the question is as good as a test. Sometimes the test is just as good as the test. But you want to figure out a way to validate on both sides, right? Like somebody's going to tell you, yes, I love what you're doing. But the real thing is, if I take it away, what will you do? Like, will you go back to your old processes? The best signal of product market fit in my mind is when somebody's doing what you're offering, but in a very complicated, cumbersome way. And by you taking it away, they have to go back to that cumbersome way, right? Like if you were to take away my microwave, I have to heat water by hand, or I have to, reheat things in the stove, etc. It's not the end of the world, but it's cumbersome. If you take away outreach, I have to do all these things very manually. I have to like create lists and mail merges and then follow ups and create my own, mutual action plans and take notes while I'm doing in a meeting. Like there are all these things that I now have to do that I didn't do before. So the because people always buy and rebuy on emotion, you want to validate both the use of it and the emotion around it. Like, do I feel happy when I use outreach? And would I feel sad if I take it away? I know it sounds childish, but it's very true. We justify, like we're emotion machines. I justify it with facts. Okay, so if you don't get at the emotional level, you're not winning.
Super critical to tie to that emotions. And I'll take that a little bit of a different direction too and talk about employee emotions. Because you mentioned, one of the things that you're paranoid right now is, how do we keep that feeling of, I remember there was a 10 million or die initiative, back in the day, and it was literally 10 million or die, and that was like, everyone's like, okay, I'm in the arena every day. We're going. And, we're fortunate to have a ton of great founders that listen to this. And I imagine many of them who are maybe Series B, Series C are starting to feel like, I don't know everyone's name anymore. I don't know all our customers by name anymore. It's harder for me to infect everyone, with this energy. And I think watching you at Outreach, for 4 years, and then now from afar, you've been able to somehow maintain that. And what would your advice be to founders to try and keep that as you scale? Because Outreach will be 10,000 employees one day. And how do you, is that even possible? Does this exist at Amazon? Does this exist at these behemoths? Or is it an impossible task?
I don't know the answer to the how do you do that at a very large scale, but I tell you what, my advice to founders, if I were to do it again, what would I do differently to maintain the level of energy that we had in the past? One is to try to stay small as much as you can. Fight the urge to go big. Fight the urge to throw headcount at the problem, and that makes it easier. So, for instance, I memorize everybody's names until Series C. So there was a point in which I knew 300 names. And it's not hard to remember 300 names because, half the names in English are biblical anyway. So like there's the Davids and the Marys and the whatever. So, like you're roughly in the
If you remember David, you've got like 10
right,
of
right.
the
And then
names.
the others are sort of like derivations of the Kyles and the whatever. It's like, right, they're all sort of like in a very contained set. There's not that many of them to remember. So all you need is association of like a very bounded number of names and faces. So it's not hard to remember a lot of names, and it's not hard to remember the customers because there's not that, you don't have that many to begin with. So try to stay small, because there is a chasm that you cross in which you stop remembering names, in which you don't have access to, people, 2-3 levels below you in the org chart, and you can't be everywhere, anywhere, anytime. So what now you're operating by culture. You're operating by the ethos and the traditions that have been created. And the thing that I took very seriously is, what are the artifacts of culture that will live on past you? Like, what are the things that people do, right? So, for instance, we used to have this highs and lows that eventually it was hard to maintain, but people still talk about it as if it happened yesterday. Of like, we still do highs and lows. We still get together and sort of have a drink at the end of the week to share what worked and what didn't work, because that was an ethos that we created at the very beginning of the company. So having these artifacts of culture that carry on are super important. And third, is the most controversial thing that I'm going to say is that, look, I don't know how to do this remote. And I know there's a lot of companies that are out there that are remote, that are still there. This is still a raging fight of like, you, you can build great companies on the back of remote. I think you can make great companies in any format, right? Like, great companies are built on the back of great ideas and great execution, and you can do that at any point. But how do you go through hard times is only an outcome of how you build a company when everybody was together, and how people sort of like navigate together through this hard time with a spirited core collaboration and an impetus to win. That all happens before shit got hard. Once it get hard, it's hard to build culture at that point, because everybody's trying to trying to figure out how to turn this thing around. So the bringing people in the office to me is material to how do we navigate these hard times, and how do we continue to build culture as we're navigating the hard time.
Yeah. What is the policy right now at Outreach for remote work?
There is no remote work. So if you were hired remote, you stay remote because we already hired you there. But there's no more there's no more remote posting. So you are attached to an office. If you are in, depending on the team, if you're here in the office in Seattle, you're in the office either 1, 2, 3, or 4 times a week. There is some pragmatic things that we had to do. So, for instance, a lot of our engineering team lives on the east side, right, in Redmond or Bellevue. And because everybody came to the office in Seattle almost at the same time, like Amazon just mandated people are coming back in June or May, and that made the corridor coming to the office incredibly, congested. So I can't ask you to sit on traffic. You see what I mean? Like, at some point, I have to be flexible too. So, for instance, my engineering team, I think, has 1 day mandatory, and the other day sort of they come in at whatever pace. But the sales team is here, the support team is here, the success team is here, and everybody else is here. And then we have offices, right? So you have to be attached to an office, either Atlanta, New York, Indy. We have a sort of like a virtual office in San Francisco, and then London and Prague. So you have to be attached to an office if you want to work here.
I mean, I'm on team office all the way. I think it's obviously nuanced. You need to, lead with empathy as you're doing, but I feel like remote work is so new, and we're now in challenging times. It's just too much of a gamble to take. Like, you can't look at a point in time in history where people built remote companies well during a down market. It just hasn't happened yet. It might in the future, but if you're a betting man, you can't point to examples. So, you need to, take the conservative approach. That's why I'm talking to you in our satellite office. We're trying to do some hard things at the fund. It's an inflection point. We want people together. We want to whiteboard together. I want to be able to, yell at Paul across the office if we need to get something done quickly. You can't replicate it. So I like it. All right. As we kind of come to the close of this conversation, and Manny, thank you again for doing this. I got 3 more questions for you, and one comes directly from our listener base. And thank you everyone for sending in your questions every week. And again, I picked one that was vague because I always appreciate where you take it. And we've already gone through a lot of advice for founders, but this question is very simple. What's your number one piece of advice you give to first-time founders?
Is to find product sales fit as fast as you can. Not product market fit, not validation, sell something. And if you're selling to an individual, it's even better. Like, you don't want to disguise your sale to an advisor who brought you into company X, and they're trying you because blah, 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 blah. That's cheating. Sell to somebody who doesn't know you from Adam and is willing to put down a credit card for you. That's when you got real fit. So get to that point of transaction as fast as you can. Otherwise, it's just, bullshitting lies.
Yes. The truest form. And so product sales fit to you means someone is willing to pay for your product. It is repeatable. You've done it more than one time, and they don't know you. You're not cheating. You're not using your advisor network. You're it's coming from a cold call or something like that. That is product sales fit in your ass.
Exactly. You took somebody who don't know don't know you, don't know the product, has a pain. You're able to explain the pain, to explain the problem, and make him part with a credit card number right there and then. That's a transaction. Get to as many of those as you can. Like actually set yourself goals, like you said, workout goals or like diet goals or whatever. Set yourself goals on how many of those are you gonna do a day, a week, etc. And drive to those goals, right? Like do first, the first time you got a full product, get to five. Get to 5 a week. It's fine. It's a low bar, but get some momentum. Go celebrate, and then do it again. Get to 20. Get to 50. And then figure out, take it from there. But you have to set these goals and milestones to prove yourself that you got a business is by selling whatever you have to somebody who doesn't know you.
Do you remember that first sale ever at Outreach from someone who did not know you, had never heard of Manny Medina, had never heard of, sales engagement at the time, and gave you their credit card?
So I remember all of them, but I remember the one that I remember with my heart is the one that helped us complete the pivot from being a recruiting solution to a sales solution. So we sold to this gentleman that was the head recruiter at App Dynamics, and I remember because they were in the Soma, they were in Brandon and whatever the cross street was, like between Market and some other, and we sold to them. And then I came back to sell more. So I went to visit them to see how they're using it, right? It's part of the obsession. How are they using it? How are you getting value from it from a recruiting perspective? And they walked me through how the recruiters were using it and the success they were having. And I was like, can I sell you more seats? And he was like, I don't have any more seats to buy. But let me walk you over to the inside sales team that is right there. And let me grab a manager, bring you to a conference room, and you can demo in front of them and see what happens. And I did a demo for the manager right there. He bought 10 licenses on the spot. And that was a pivot. Like it wasn't some long finagle thing. It was like that transaction that's closed. I walked out of the building. I walked outside and I called Kinzer, my co-founders, and was like, hey guys, I think that we should be selling into sales for real. Like it's not busy. There's nobody else there, and really are solving a problem.
And then you do the quick math. How many salespeople? How many recruiters? Okay,
Exactly.
Fucking go.
It was visceral, right? Because the floor was full of salespeople. It was the entire floor was full of salespeople, and the recruiting team were sitting in the corner over there in like 3 desks. And I'm like, just do the math, right? There's 3 people over there they sold to, and then like 100 and some right here that I could be selling to.
Exciting moments. Must be cool to look back on all of those. Okay, I have final 2 questions. I always keep them the same, and this one's kind of a hot take. And the question is, what's one thing that revenue leaders or founders believe that you think is bullshit, or at least no longer serving us?
I think that one fundamental thing that has changed is 2 things that have changed. One is managing by forecast. You can no longer manage by forecast. You cannot call a shot and make the shot if you're not managing by activity, by inspecting, by looking at what every person is doing right or wrong. And that is what is biting the entire industry in the ass right now. This is why people are missing the numbers left and right. I also think that in the past we would allow ourselves time to take the bottom performing reps and try to turn them into sort of like middle of the pack performing. I don't think we have time for that anymore. I think that the quarters come in so violently fast that you have 2 options. You have to take your 120% rep and make it 130% rep, and you have to take the ones in the middle and trying to make them overachieve. Those are the only choices you have right now. Trying to play the entirety of the distribution is just way too hard right now. You don't have enough time. And I'm seeing that across the board where I think the most infamous one was the CloudFront, a company that just released their numbers and they announced how their sales participation had gone way down because they haven't been able to identify the lowest performing reps, and now they have. And guess what? They haven't put a number on the board for a very long time. So now they're freaking out and like letting everybody go, etc. This is too late. You gotta like give them an early signal and tell them who is gonna play and who's not gonna play. Like you're a coach at the end of the day, right? Like you got a team and you gotta figure out who's gonna be in the field. If there's people who are never gonna be in the field, then you gotta let them know so because that's a human thing to do. You know what I mean? And then the people who are sort of like in the middle of the pack, you got to be making incredible performance. And incredible performance, the Steph Currys and the LeBrons, you got to give them even more airtime. You got to give them more resources so they can continue to outperform and set the pace. So this is becoming this economy is forcing us to make choices of like making the good great and the better awesome. and everybody else needs to go find another place to play.
I agree with that. And there may be a case too, where, those the bottom third, we'll call them, maybe they become supporting players that make the top players more effective. Like maybe it's a fundamentally different role. Like they might not, completely gone. Maybe they'll be the ones who are learning how to use AI really well to make these top 5% even more effective, right?
That's absolutely right. That's absolutely
Yeah.
right. But at the end of the day, as a revenue leader, you have to figure out what is the team that you're deploying in the field. Because as a revenue leader, let's just call a spade a spade. We get called by the quarter, right? We either make the quarter or we don't make the quarter. And we don't make too many quarters, you're shown the door. Like even for CEOs, like even with other CEOs, we're all talking to each other and we're all saying, look, I made some changes, but I got 2 more changes in my back pocket. If that doesn't fly, the board is gonna go find somebody else to go run. So like we're all in the same boat. There's nowhere to hide. You know what I mean? So we all have to play the field and play it right and play to win.
And you better hope those people in the arena with you are the right ones. So I love it. Okay, final question here. It's kind of this one, but flipped more on a positive angle. What's one tactic or strategy that's working for you right now? What would you encourage leaders that are listening to this to implement today that will help move the needle?
The problem in the market right now is that there's a lot of companies that are not buying, but they are making buying signals. There are companies who are buying. So if you get really strict about qualifying early, building champions early, you're going to sort out faster than before the ones that are buying versus the ones that are not buying. And it's fairly simple, and we should all apply it. And that you should ask, like every conversation should be a give and a get, and the give and the get should be able to make your deal move forward. But if you follow your own metric, whether it's MedPick or Challenge or whatever that is, if you follow your own process to the T, you will be able to overqualify the account and really get to the ones that are buying. And the ones that are buying big. This is why ServiceNow keeps making their numbers, because they're selling massive transformation deals because people are betting big right now in transformation. So this is the right time to sell transformation, but you have to qualify. You know what I mean? Because you need to deprioritize the little stuff that is not get done, so you can reprioritize the big stuff that is going to get done, that is going to be momentous to your pocket and to the transformation of the company. So that's the good news and the bad news in one go.
It's going back again, like sales fundamentals, right? I remember being told that very early in my career, like get to know as fast as you can. If it's going to be a no, find out quickly and spend your time and resources on the higher probability, bets. And now during this down market, we don't have time to chase maybes. We don't have time to chase those no's. You have to find high probability games to play, or you're in some deep trouble.
Especially for a startup, like your cash burn happens every day that people show up at the office. So if you're not generating top line, burn is going to eat you alive. So you got to stay on top of that game. There's no rest. You'll rest at the end, not in the middle.
Rest at the end, not in the middle. That's a perfect place to wrap up. Well, Manny, I appreciate you, brother. I appreciate your leadership. I appreciate everything you've done for the sales profession. And I do want to congratulate you as well. I heard you just brought on a president of go-to-market, David Ruggiero, which is an incredibly exciting hire for you guys. And I believe you are also hiring for head of EMEA right now. I wanted to plug that because that is a huge role for the right person.
Massive role.
Yeah, very cool. Awesome. Well, Manny, I appreciate you. For all those who listened, hung out with us, I know you likely found that as valuable as I did. I always learn a ton from you. And I always say this, but listening is one thing, executing is everything. Go out there, implement some of the strategies, tactics we talked about, and go crush your number. It's tough, but it's happening.
It's out there.
So make it happen.
It's out there.
It's out
Go
there.
get it. All right. Appreciate you, brother. Good to see you, Scott, and good luck to you.
You too, man. Appreciate it.